Good evening, everyone. Because today is a public holiday, this is a recording of what our session would have been all about. I'm going to briefly touch again on the feedback I gave previously on assignment 1. We're going to touch on learning unit 3, look at the dates for the next sessions, and then a very brief discussion of assignment 2. Referencing was a huge problem in assignment 1 for some students. Lots of students had issues with it. Some didn't reference at all. Some, the reference list and the, with others, your reference list and your in-text referencing did not balance, and that is problematic. So please be very careful of that. YouTube videos are not the go-to sources for academic support of essays. I can go and make a YouTube video now on why I think pragmatism is a terrible philosophy. And my video will totally be made up of my ideas, and I can even make up ideas as I go along. It will not necessarily be based on facts. And that is why making use of YouTube videos is really not the ideal thing. The same thing goes for a blog, which happens to be an online diary. It is again based on people's opinions. Some students only made use of 2, 3, maybe 4 sources for their whole assignment 1. And that does not reflect very well on you as a student, because it means that you did not really read up about this topic. Because when you do your analysis, I look for assimilation. I look for a combination of various sources that you have combined to give me your opinion. Based on the different essay topics. So please be very careful not to only use a few sources. You should use at least 4 and above, but I would say 6 is probably a safe bet. For question 1 of assignment 1, theoretical clarity tended to be a problem at times. And that means that although idealism and realism is being discussed, they're not really discussed in detail. It's like a superficial discussion of the elements of these two philosophies. And that often caused students not to do so well. So if I could then just go on what would really have been a benefit for question 1, and some of these elements would also be present in assignment 2. Although your personal opinion was asked, you still needed to make use of sources to substantiate the claims you make. So be very careful not to make academic statements such as pragmatism postulates a teacher-centered approach. You could say that, but I'm going to say to you, says who? Who told you that? Because you have to reference that source to me so that I can see that you have made use of a variety of sources in your discussion. So the rest of the comments you can see on the screen, we have covered these before. I just wanted to touch on them again. Next, we can go look at question 2. Students did well in their metaphor that they had to provide. It was the explanation of the metaphor that often caused problems, where students would relate the elements of their metaphor as it pertains to idealism and realism, but they then would not reference that idealism and realism claims that they are making. So please just be very careful of that. So this week you should complete everything that's still outstanding with regards to learning unit 3. Please make sure that you look through the videos or you watch the YouTube videos that I've provided the links for you under more resources. Your lecturer, Lindy Kretzmann, I don't know if she's everybody's lecturer. I think she just does elective modules. is really very, very knowledgeable on these philosophies, the continental philosophies, and she explains it in a very straightforward, basic way. Please take note, our next session, which is due on the 22nd of May, will also be a recorded session because I will actually be in the air flying back from Durban to Cape Town during that time. By then, you will be just about finished with the syllabus, so it will still be a little bit too early for us to discuss assignment, the summative assignment. And that is why we've agreed to make that a recording in which I will touch base on the key aspects of Learning Unit 4. Then we have our last Collab session on the 5th of June. It will take place at 6 o'clock. And then our final NSS, which will take place on the 12th of June. Take note the time, 19:30. In which we will then discuss the summative assessment. So if we go now and just look a little bit at some of the key concepts of assignment 2, what exactly is it that you need to do? Please remember you need to choose between 1A and 1B. If you do both, I mark the one that I see first. I'm not marking both and then choosing the better one. I mark the one that is first. So don't waste your own time by doing both. So in question 1A, you need to explain what pragmatism is. You're going to create a guideline document for other staff. You need to explain the relevance of pragmatism, and you need to give practical guidance for the teachers in how they can incorporate pragmatism within the classroom. Give advice and explain how teaching will happen. Give examples of how you use pragmatism in your class. Use appropriate structure and style. Next, we're going to look at question 1B. The suggestion is that you make use of the following guidelines. So this is the one where you have to address what is Noddings's ideas of care theory. So you need to give a short overview of the 3 elements that they ask you for. You need to explain how these elements can be applied to the scenario that they've given you. And then you should end off taking all the key and the loose ends and just tie it up nicely into your conclusion. Next, sorry, it's not question 3, it's question 2, it's a typo. Question 2 deals with Paulo Freire. The answer must explain what critical theory is. Then, what is Paulo Freire's critical pedagogy, also known as social reconstructionism? What is this banking education that he refers to? What is democratic education? And how and why do students need to construct their own knowledge? You cannot tell me that students don't need to construct their own knowledge, irrespective of what philosophy you believe in. Ultimately, education is about students making sense of theory in their own way so that they can process it and make it part of their life. So how does this fit in with Freire's work? And then lastly, you need to discuss practical examples of how this can be implemented in the classroom. So please make sure that you reference correctly, that you address the different bullets as we have discussed in our NSS, and some key points. Remember, we have one reference list at the end of the whole assignment. You should have a cover page. Your layout should be the standard normal margins. Your font size should be 11 or 12. You could choose between Arial, New Times Roman, Calibri, Tahoma. There's a few of those that are regarded as good sources. So use any of those. Make sure you use 1.5 line spacing, and please indicate your word count at the end of each essay. Then at least you don't get a message from me stating your essay is too long, and maybe it was just your layout that made it appear to be longer. I hope this has been informative, and I look forward to marking assignment 2.